So Nicole, let's start with some introductions, and you're new to QSR, right? Like this is kind of a new world for you.
It is. You might count. My husband and I owned a pizza shop in Austin for 9
That counts.
years. Yeah, we started as a food trailer, and then we moved into a brick and mortar, but nothing at scale, frankly. I spent the vast majority of my career in CPG, most of it in liquor. I was on the media agency side, actually, for the first 10 years of my career, and started with Brown-Forman brands, fell in love with Jack Daniel and the liquor business in general. Went on to work with Bacardi and Grey Goose and a lot of those brands. Then became CMO at Tito's, the vodka company based down in Austin, and I was there for 9 years and oversaw that bananas meteoric growth that was as fun to do as it looked like from the outside. Then I went on to PepsiCo and ran the Mountain Dew business there for about 3 years. Then I went to Live Nation. I was the chief brand officer there for a bit. Then I went to work for Jennifer Lopez and helped her launch her bottled cocktail, Delola. There's the ghost of Jennifer Lopez.
It is. She's here right now.
And while I was at Delola, that's when I joined the board of Salad & Go and just absolutely fell in love with the mission, fell in love with the business. The people at the company are absolutely amazing. Some of the best folks I've ever worked with. So now I'm here, and I've been in the CMO role for, I think, 9 months, which is shocking.
So you're basically a pro at this point, right? Figured it out completely. I love that you've come from so many different industries, right? QSR can be a little incestuous, right? When you get into food, you like stay in food and you just bop around. But what's like one thing that you've learned from CPG that you're bringing over into QSR?
Yeah, I think it's sort of become the foundation of my whole career, the way I've built my philosophy of brand building. And that is that brand, I've always been a champion of and an advocate of the power of brand and what it can do not only for driving business, but also for creating macro value for organizations. There's been a bazillion studies. But the thing that I think we sometimes don't think enough about when it comes to brand building is that you are doing that against a cultural context, a cultural backdrop. And that, I think, is the key to what I have learned in those experiences. Tito's is a great example of that. When I joined, it was in February of 2010. We were just coming out of the Great Recession. There was this retrenched interest in American manufacturing and these bootstrap stories. And we had just come out of the era, where I was working at Grey Goose, of red velvet ropes and bottle service and, Italian shoes and sports cars and all of that. And the recession sort of did a reset, and people wanted more steak, less sizzle, if you will. And so Tito's story, this, guy down in Texas making vodka from corn, it was completely out of step for the 10 years before that. Yeah. But at that moment, kind of recognizing what was happening in the macro-cultural context, taking advantage of, I know that sounds kind of not great, but
we're marketers. We take advantage of people. It's okay.
We're positioning ourselves as like, hey, this is what we do, and we do it authentically, and we've been doing this. I remember early in my time there, I got so many people reached out to me, and they're like, hey, your label and your bottle are ugly. Can we help you with that? And I was like, nah, I'm good. We're going to use this awful paper label and this Corel Draw logo that Tito made himself. But
is that still the logo they're using today?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, it is. And I mean, that team has done such an extraordinary job. I left at the end of 2018, and that team has done an extraordinary job of staying true to the brand, continuing to grow in a responsible way. Nothing but love for those guys.
Yeah. And so you didn't really create this cultural trend, right? The timing just worked out, and you were able to solve the opportunity. What are some of those macro level cultural trends that you're seeing now in QSR?
I think it's the same thing we've been talking about this whole time, right? We have the trend of food prices, which have become challenging, not just in our space, but across the entire food system. And you have the trend of people looking for healthier options. It just so happens that we sit right at the intersection of those two things. And a lot of you, I'm sure, don't know Salad & Go. We're at about 150 locations now in Texas, Arizona, Nevada, and Oklahoma, opening about a store a week. So we're growing very quickly, and we'll open up 4 more states this year. But we are a mission-driven organization, and our goal is to address this conflict between affordability, accessibility, and wellness. And so many QSR concepts, I think, have lived and died in the world of convenience and value. And I often think about, a single mom, 2 kids, working 2 jobs, maybe taking night school. Maybe that's because that's who my mom was when I was growing up. And QSR was sort of a reliable way to feed a family when you didn't have time, you didn't have a ton of money to work with. And over time, some of those pieces have eroded. And we're starting to see that come up more and more in the cultural conversation. If you just spend any time on social and food talk, let's call it that, right? You'll see people putting up their receipts, and there's real anger there. And at the same time, we are dying younger. We are sicker than we've ever been as a society. There are alarmingly high rates of childhood diabetes, and people are kind of crying out, like, hey, something's not right here. So we're trying to offer a solution and really be like in the vanguard of changing that for millions of people around the country. 48-ounce salad, including protein, starting at $6.79. It's unheard of.
Wow.
But that's what we think we can do to change the world for the better, even just a little bit.
So would you consider yourself a value brand at that price point?
I think so, yes. We are very careful not to build the brand on the price. It's more about the philosophy of value. And that is dynamic based on the market that you're in, what the competitive landscape, what the wage landscape, what the supply chain landscape, right? Like all of that factors into what your actual price point is going to be. But we do very much consider that value gap to not just the competitive set within QSR, but also grocery. Like that's a meal occasion, just like going through a drive-through is.
Yeah, we're not just competing with other QSRs. We're competing with anything else that can go in your stomach.
When somebody said 5 meals a day, I was like, who eats 5 meals a day?
Who does
Apparently
that?
Lots of people eat 5 meals a day. I'm unfortunately not one of them. It sounds great.
So that under $7 price point, right? Like I'm sure everyone in here is like, how in the world is that possible? So how are you able to provide that type of value with healthy alternatives?
So it all comes down to our model. We have an integrated supply chain. We operate out of central kitchens or commissaries, and we work directly with farmers. We bring in all the produce, we bring in the tofu and marinate it and cook it ourselves. And so it does a couple of things by having this sort of centralized facility. It allows us to consolidate specialized labor so that we're paying those higher wages to a consolidated group of people that then is serving the satellite stores. We are able then to take complexity out of the store itself. Nobody's cooking anything in a Salad and Go. It's a 750 square foot store, and it can be run by as few as 3 people. You have make lines, so every salad is built to order, but there's no fryer, there's no big giant hood. It's very clean, it smells nice in there, right? And you don't have the specialized labor of chopping and prepping and doing all that in the store. All of that is done for you. And so we've taken a lot of cost out of the model. That doesn't mean that what we're doing isn't incredibly capital intensive. It is. Building those central kitchens and operating them when you aren't at capacity, meaning the number of stores that you've opened that the central kitchen has the capacity to serve. There's a balance there. But we so strongly believe in the power of this model, in the portability of the model, and we're seeing that. Phoenix is where we first started, and we're seeing stores in Dallas that are getting up to those same AUV levels that we have in Phoenix and have been there for 11 years. So it's all about unlocking and accelerating that growth, putting as many stores in the ground where we can, and addressing this need for healthier options that are convenient and affordable. And I think the work that companies like Sweetgreen and Kava are doing is amazing. Absolutely incredible food, delicious, but it is way out of reach for most people.
From a cost-wise, or
I live in New York. $17 salad is like, of course it's $17. I live in New York. But for the average person, and again, I go back to that person in my mind that I'm always thinking of that we serve. That is not a thing. Right?
Well, we forget that, like, we're not our target audience, right? Like, we're not talking to us here.
No. And I think we forget that at our peril, you know? And we're seeing, going back to this like cultural context and the relevance of mission and how that informs your brand marketing, your menu innovation, decisions you make about store, decisions you make about price, COGS thresholds, all of that is informed by our depth of mission and our desire to serve a kind of underserved class of Americans.
Yeah. You touched on a lot of like just key themes, like value, convenience, right? I think we have a very complicated relationship with both of those words. For everyone in the room who doesn't have the luxury of a centralized kitchen or not having the cooktops or not having that ops complexity, like what advice would you give to them of how to incorporate value authentically into their strategy?
We've heard a couple other people talk about this. Value doesn't always have to mean financial value. Value can mean the wellness that I derive, the psychological value that I get out of knowing what I'm eating fits within what I was looking for. If sustainability is super important to you, you're going to shop at organizations that have a sustainability as a pillar. And so what I think doesn't work is, I'm going to throw a little bit of shade, throwing together a $5 menu, value menu, and running it for a month.
Yeah.
That, to me, feels like a slap in the face. That's not really listening to the guest and responding in a way that's authentic to your brand.
Yeah.
What's your value proposition? For that group, it might be nostalgia, not money.
Yeah. Well,
right?
that's a Band-Aid on a problem, right? You're not actually addressing the core problem here.
Yeah, and I think people see through that more now than they ever have.
Yeah. Let's talk about menu innovation for a little bit, right? Like this is a very tricky needle to thread between personal interest, mass appeal, ops complexity, right? We talked a little bit about that across the board. How have you kind of streamlined your menu innovation process?
Sure. We didn't have a whole lot of process when I got there. And I mean, again, like that's not throwing shade. This is a young company, and we've just begun to scale in the last like 2.5 to 3 years. But I am very, very privileged that our executive chef is part of my team, so I'm very close to that process. And one of the first things I did was I brought StageGate, which I'm sure lots of you guys are very familiar with. I didn't learn about it until I was at PepsiCo. And it is incredibly tortured and complex at PepsiCo. There was a woman named Rita, I love you Rita, wherever you are. Her whole job was to run StageGate because it was that complex. So that's not what I brought over to Saladico. We took those principles and created a scaled down version that was far less complex and tailored to our organization. But the great thing about StageGate, it's really just a project management philosophy. It can scale with the organization. And so I brought that to the table, but by no means am I the master of that world. We have a commercialization expert who has really taken it and run with it. And we are just now, sort of seeing, well, I say just now, I've been there 9 months. It's like forever. But we're starting to see the fruits of that. We put our entire fall menu innovation through the StageGate process. We're using it for other ingredient optimizations, and hopefully soon we'll use it even for technology. And just having a process has been a massive unlock. The other side of that is sort of thinking through how can we get really creative with what we have. We have 750 square foot stores, double-sided make line. That's it. So as you're thinking about what to create, I actually love having boundaries on a sandbox. I think it makes you get extraordinarily creative. One of the cool things we did this year was to reach out to our team members at the store level. Because, if you're in there every day and you get your shift meal, you're not just eating the things that are on the menu.
You're going to play around,
So, like, what are they eating? They're close to the food every day. Like, what are y'all putting together? So we did this great survey.
What did you find?
Oh, my God. So, what? I'll tell you guys. We're going to talk about it in just like a couple weeks, so I'm tipping my hat a little bit. But we sell this thing. It's a frozen strawberry lemonade. I frankly think it's like the greatest, most awesome value on our menu. It's $1.79. We make it fresh, like with strawberries and lemonade. And lemonade we make ourselves.
Novel concept.
Amazing. It's $1.79. And the team members were putting half and half in it and calling it like a dirty FSL, which you guys all know, like the dirty soda trend. And so there's that, and there was all these like different ways of using the ingredients in combination. They were using the wrap warmer press thing to do things that we're not going to do on the menu. But we had a session as a marketing team where we actually tasted all this stuff. Like, let's go build this. And if there's something we can create that is novel with relatively little ops complexity, no implications to procurement and supply chain or production, that's a win. Because this is one of the things that is so different from the CPG world to this world. We're 100% company-owned stores. The decisions we make as marketers, they exist in a very tangible way at the store level. And don't remember, forgive me, I don't remember who was talking about this, but just the complexity of anything new is astounding.
Yeah.
And yet we get it done. 14 LTOs, whoever did the 14 LTOs, like that's amazing. Probably not the right thing to do, but amazing that you can navigate the complexity to make that happen. So taking complexity out, we want to simplify.
Because it's not just about adding one more SKU. And for you guys, like the 750 square feet, like adding one more SKU can be a huge impact, right? So as you think about menu innovations and the 14 LTOs, right, which is insane, like what role do LTOs play in your menu strategy?
So it's, I think, again, for everyone, you want to increase frequency with existing guests, but you want to have new news to hopefully reach people who've never given you a try, and maybe you have something finally that is interesting enough for them. We just, a couple weeks ago, relaunched our caprese salad, which was this massive fan favorite. It's one of those, you take it off the menu, and everybody goes crazy on social. They're yelling it. No matter what you post, they're like, bring back the caprese salad. okay, we hear you. So we relaunched it, and we pulled all from our database, everyone who'd ever bought that salad. We sent them custom communication and let them know, hey, it's coming back. And it has been a massive sales driver. Really, really exciting. So I think kind of like digging into that, the fan side of things and seeing incrementality from it is a very exciting thing. And then we also did something earlier this year where we took existing ingredients on the line and we made a steak fajita wrap. Ooh. I know that's like, okay, yeah, big deal. But it was two things. One, we've always had steak, but most people didn't know it because our salads and wraps come with either chicken or tofu, and adding or replacing steak or adding steak is an upcharge. It's like $1.20 upcharge. And so a lot of people just didn't know that. Yeah. So featured steak in that menu item, and then we also heroed the wrap. You can get any of our salads as a wrap, or you can build your own wrap. But again, we're called Salad and Go. All the pictures on the menu are of salads, right? It's not the first thing you think of. So there was an almost immediate impact on P-Mix from a salad to wrap standpoint and on steak. We ran out of steak. Wow. 8 days into the launch of this product, we ran out. And our incredible NFP&A team and supply chain teams, they were over projecting what we thought we needed, and we still ran out of steak. Yeah. So I think it's a testament to having something new to talk about without stretching the operations to the point of breaking. You can get really creative with that. Yeah. And for us, like I said, we've seen some significant impact on revenue, frequency, fan excitement, all those good things.
And running out of an item is not necessarily a bad thing, right? This is marketing 101, is like, let's have a little scarcity, right? People go wild if it's like, oh, I can only get it for a certain time, or it's like only a few stores have it.
Yeah. Remember when KFC ran out of chicken in the UK?
Oh,
and they ran that FCK ad? It was like one of the greatest moments in marketing history. I love that. We don't have the same kind of platform that KFC does, but we embraced it. Yeah. We're like, how can we have fun with this? Because this is a real thing that's happening. Yeah. We've got to own it. We got to be honest about it. Let's have some fun with our guests and then make a big deal out of it when we get steak back, which was like a week later. Right. But a week in our world where you're looking at daily sales
is a lifetime.
Forever.
Yeah. You guys are at an interesting point where you can operate on a dual day part, right? Like breakfast and lunch. So you have people come in, get breakfast, and they can grab their salad for later in the day. How do you think about that as part of your marketing strategy?
Yeah, I think we might be the only ones who do that. I'm not 100% certain, so don't pillory me if I'm wrong about that. But we have a 6:30 a.m. and you can come through and get a salad at 6:30 a.m. or your breakfast burrito or your breakfast burrito for $3.34 and a hot coffee or cold brew for $1.49. Yeah. We source our beans from the same place as the big guys do. But we just keep those prices low because it's important. So there's two ways. I mean, obviously that's an incremental dining occasion. And as talked about, the 5 meals a day, we can service 2 of those at the same time. Breakfast ends at 10:30, but we serve our core menu the entire day. You can even get a hot soup at that time in the morning. And so there's the incrementality from that. And then I think the sort of add-on to the value of that is if we can sort of take traffic out of the lunch day part, especially at our busiest stores, and move that into the morning, we can increase our capability for throughput during the lunch hour, which is the most important.
Now you're solving a labor problem that we all have.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, delivery helps with some of that, but it creates its own problems, like its own challenges, as we've all discussed. But so we definitely have to find a balance. But I think when you're a growing brand, an emerging brand in a lot of markets, we're called Salad and Go. nobody knows we have breakfast, right? So that's definitely just an awareness challenge where we have to get the word out about that. And someone was talking about UGC and the power of those like real life testimonials. And this is the power of fandom, where you have people telling your story. Someone who comes through our drive-thru and gets one of these gigantic breakfast burritos and is super excited about the value that's bringing to their life. And they get on Instagram and they're like, oh my God, guys, check this out. Priceless. Give me that all day long. But yeah, it's an awareness challenge for sure.
What are some of the biggest constraints that you're facing in your brand right now?
Shelf life is probably that's the biggest constraint.
Lettuce wilts really quickly.
It really does. And we're, because of the central kitchen model, it's 3 to 5 days farm to fork. It has to be, otherwise the ingredients really aren't fresh. So from just a logistics growth standpoint, shelf life is a limiting factor. That is just the fundamental truth of it. We build central kitchens and then we can serve restaurants in about a 1-day drive radius from there. That's how we protect the freshness of the product. And we've partnered with a third party to do that last mile distribution to the stores for us, because we're not a logistics company. Right? We learned that. We used to do it ourselves, and we learned that that's not it.
Outsource what you need to be able to do.
Exactly. And even if it might cost 5% more on a balance sheet, that 5% is made up in a bazillion different ways. So shelf life is certainly, it's on my mind a lot.
Does it keep you up at night? Is that what keeps you up at night?
No. I work with incredible people, and they're the ones who are equipped to solve those problems in ways that I am not. But it is something that, if I pull out of the marketing role and I think about the business overall, it is something that we're all kind of going, okay, well, this is how we unlock growth. And it's by building more of these central kitchens and then expanding in those radiuses. But awareness, I think, is, that's always the biggest challenge, and balancing awareness with traffic driving. Building fandoms so that they can do that work for us in an exponential way that way outstrips the financial resources that we have.
You mentioned you're opening a store a week, 150 units right now.
I'm always like, I think it's this many, because we literally are opening stores all the time.
Yeah.
Did we?
It's a rough number, right? Yeah. Like all data, it's just a rough guess. So a lot of brands are in that similar area, right? Like you have a lot of brands here in that kind of 100 to 200 locations, really, really growth mode. How are you thinking about just structuring your internal teams to account for what you need right now, but what you're going to look like when you are 200, 250, 300, 500 stores?
I've made a lot of those changes, even just in the past 9 months. I think we have an extraordinary team, most of whom were there when I got there. Really just incredible people, deeply passionate about the work, lots of tremendous experience. We're fortunate to have a couple folks from Raising Cane's, who is like best in class at field marketing and growth mindset. So that's been amazing. But when I got there, we were working with a creative agency that was just not the right fit for us. They were treating us as though we were of a McDonald's size, right? It was like, oh, the strategy, and then we've got to have a kickoff team, and then it's going to take us 6 weeks to get a first draft. And I'm like, what?
Don't have that kind of time.
I need agility, right? So the place where we are right now, and I think a lot of you can empathize with us, is we're in growth stage. So we need to be able to be agile. Do I need to shut up?
Oh, no, you're good.
We need to be able to be agile, but we also need to be able to grow quickly. And those are not the same thing, right? Agility in the moment is being able to create content, respond to the business, pull through menu innovation more quickly, those kind of things. Growth is, do I have the right foundation set so that when we put our foot on the gas, things don't just break? And so to that end, it's been like up-leveling roles and talent where we've needed to. It is bringing on the right agency partners, and in some cases, not having an agency. I've brought creative in-house, and I actually have an incredible creative director who's joining us at the end of this month. Can't wait, because that's just going to unlock so much for us. And I'm in the process right now of switching media agencies, which is just a huge pain in the ass. Like, who has time for that? But you have to do it just to make sure you have the right partners.
What are, you said it just wasn't a right fit, right? Like, so what are some of the things that you look for in a good partner?
Transparency, I think, is probably the biggest one. When you're really busy, you can be taken advantage of very easily.
Yeah.
Because it's just like, oh, well, we're just going to do that because they're not going to have time to dig in and
Yeah.
really understand those things. I'm the most curious human being I've ever met in my life, and as I've gotten older, I've gotten more curious.
Yeah.
I want to know why. Why is everything that way?
Yeah.
And I need partners who are going to be willing to come to the table with me with that. Also, this is that particularly difficult time because I want partners who can get us to 1,500, 5,000 stores.
Right.
I don't want to have to change horses in the middle of the stream. Again, it's not a great use of anyone's time. So partners who are willing to say, okay, today, this is the suite of services and these are the costs that make sense for your business. As you grow, we're going to be able to unlock all these other capabilities. Your fees will probably change based on those, but their willingness to kind of scale back, meet us where we are, and then grow with us, as opposed to sort of overwhelming us with things we don't actually need, and shooting for the moon when we really just need to like fly in a jet.
Yeah.
That was a really weird
I think it landed. Yeah, right? Yeah.
There's one other partner we have that I think has helped us kind of punch above our weight. We started working with Maya Feller, who's a registered dietitian. She's an extraordinary person. She also has this platform, and she's on the Today Show all the time. She's writes for massive publications, and by working with her, it opens up her stage and her audience. That helps us again, sort of like up level what we're capable of and reach more people than we would be able to on our own.
Last question before we open it up to the audience. What QSR or fast casual restaurant are you most excited about? It could be one here today. It doesn't have to be.
I really have loved seeing all the innovation in the healthy space. It's really exciting, not only as someone in this business, but just as a person who likes to eat those kinds of foods, and I want to feed my children those kind of foods. That's been really, really exciting. I think I'm really interested to see what happens with Wendy's. My old boss, Kirk Tanner, is the chief over there now, and after the dynamic pricing debacle.
Oh God, we will be talking about that for years.
I don't want to see, right? Like, what are you going to do? How are you going to come back from that? How are you going to return to being consumer-centric and reassure people and kind of get back to being the Wendy's that we all kind of knew and loved? I also must say that I really do admire what Raising Cane's is doing. I have a 13-year-old son who is squarely in your core demographic. He's like on Cane Talk or whatever. I'm sure there's a corner of TikTok that's like dedicated to Raising Cane's. I think they are best in class at what they do. And I've been in that Times Square location, and it's like Disneyland for chicken fingers. The benches are
Disneyland for what a visual. I'm just gonna end on Disneyland for chicken fingers.
I just stopped talking about
Yeah. Questions from the audience? Oh, we can't. I think you're somewhere back there.
It's real.
All right. Remind us who you are.
Hi, Tracy with Valpak. Live in Rockwall, Texas. Started experiencing your brand about 6 months ago, and I think I shared some of this with you last night, but I want to share for everyone in here, if you haven't been to a Salad to Go, their salads are amazing, but their breakfast burritos, like I didn't even know they had them. My neighbor put something on Facebook, said, oh my God, it's amazing. It's like $3.30. It's huge. I cut it in half. I go like 2-3 times a week and get these burritos. So I'm just saying, and now I have to get a coffee because I have not tried your coffee yet. So check it out, you guys. I'm a fan for you.
Thank you. See,
Wasn't even a question. It's just love. Yeah.
She's doing it here, but also you learned about it on Facebook from a friend who tried it and posted about it. I said this to Tito's 1,000 times. We got to do stuff that's cool, so cool that everybody wants to talk about it.
Yeah.
And whether that was Vodka for Dog People or sponsoring a bunch of music festivals, developing a swag program that was in that industry really best in class and very sought after. Those are the things that you do as a brand that don't have that like immediate measurable ROI, but are absolutely priceless in creating relationships with people who go to bat for you.
Yeah.
And then you can't spend your way to that. You have to earn your way to it. You really can't see.
No, I know. I can't.
Anyone?
I've been running blind up here the entire time. Any other questions?
You're going to have a burrito shortage, it sounds like.
It does.
No?
Julie, let's get ready.
Anyone? Okay.
Anyone? No? All right, awesome. Nicole, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.